Hello, everybody out there. Hope everybody's having a great night. Welcome to probably one of our first podcasts, if not the first one. I'm sure our groupings will be able to tell us, but welcome to our wrestling podcast, which is called TheRUB. My name is Matt Kortomash. Basically, I'm going to be the host of this podcast for now. We might switch in and out as we decide to go, but fuck everybody. It's our first one, right? But everybody else that we got on there, we got two other very qualified wrestling experts that are out there. So first one is Josh. Josh, tell us a little about yourself and your wrestling expertise that you have from what you watched and stuff in the past.
Hey, my name's Josh, aka Plant Daddy. I've been in and out of wrestling for the last 20 years. Pretty much got into watching wrestling because you guys watched wrestling and it was interesting and kept us close, and just got back into it recently, and it's really interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in the next couple weeks, especially with WrestleMania.
Yeah, WrestleMania coming up next week. That's a great point. And our other podcast member that we have, pretty much the heart and soul, the razor sharpness that we like to say of this podcast. Chris, introduce yourself. Tell us about what your wrestling experience is and how it works in this day and age.
Well, it all started renting, going to Bianco Video in Sudbury and renting Royal Rumble videos and renting Survivor Series. Those are my favorite. As a kid, I'd watch those, and it was so neat back then because you'd have like the $1 Million Team and the Axes of Power, and so all that stuff was really cool. I wish they'd bring that back. I'm still the standing world heavyweight champion of SWA, which I won, I believe, in possibly 1998, and then we stopped working. So basically, I'm still the champion. So if anybody wants some, they can come get some. I was big into the Attitude Era wrestling. That was probably the deepest I got into wrestling. And then I kind of got out of it during the Ruthless Aggression era, and then I got kind of back into it now a few years ago, mainly with WWE, and then when AEW picked up, I got even more into it. Now I follow NJPW, and I guess being the Elite had something to do with that. I would watch that. I just caught it randomly, and then I started following the Indies and the Bucks, so I guess that's how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have generally the same story. I think a lot of us, when we were in, we all went to high school together, so that everybody knows, up in Sudbury, and basically
we were all in SWA together.
Yeah, we were all in backyard wrestling just because we loved it so much. But the Attitude Era, I think, is really what really kicked it off for us. And we'd always kind of watch Monday Night Raw, and even sometimes back then there wasn't even at the time. I think it was Thursday Night SmackDown, and we never even had that in some cases. We just had Raw, and we watched WCW. And I just remember I would tape it on my dad's VCR, and because it would show at 9:00, and then you get the replays at 12, and then I think after that, once I kind of got into university and even in the end part of high school, I was really interested in the indies, who was up and coming and who was really kind of kicking in. So I remember reading articles in some SoCal, promotions where they were talking about Christopher Daniels and guys like that have been in documentaries. Like Chris will remember a name like Mike Modest, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but his name was Donovan. And, there was a whole bunch of guys that were in that SoCal scene that you could find all the results and everything. And it was all great. But I think now we're kind of moving more into with AEW, I'd have to agree. There was kind of a couple years off there where there was just WWE, and, now moving into with AEW, having a good, decent product in WWE, and now seeing what's going on in the Far East, and NJPW is probably where we're really going with this. So that's where we're going to kind of go with this podcast. I think that's where it is. I mean, we're not really having any massive, what's the word? It's just going to kind of be like a shoot talking about everything. And we're just going to try and have a format and just try to get better. It's a work in progress. It's a labor of love. And that's what this is, right? So gentlemen, will be our very first topic ever that we're going to talk about. So we'll start with Chris. Chris, why don't you tell us who you think your wrestler of the week is and why?
I have to. Yeah, I have to admit that leading up to this was it was poor preparation. I didn't watch as much as I probably wanted to. But for me, going into it, I guess I watched all of Dynamite, so I guess I would have to say my wrestler of the week would be Kenny Omega. We showed him being able to go back out on his own. It seems like Hangman Page getting back in with the Elite. Basically, what he's gonna do is take Kenny, like give Kenny that spot. They're just swapping Kenny for Hangman. So basically, we're witnessing the start of Kenny's new singles run, and I think with that match he had as well, it was just it was a great match. So I think I would have to say Kenny Omega. Just it's looking like we're building towards bigger things on his singles run, and that's watching Kenny. That's my favorite Kenny to watch.
That's great. Josh, what about yourself?
So I would have to say that Kenny Omega's opponent, El Hijo del Vikino, if that's how you say it, I'd never seen him wrestle before, and I would say that a lot of people had never seen him wrestle before. So for this match, he did things that I have never seen in the ring done before. So much so that I made Tamara, my wife, come and sit and watch it because I thought I was witnessing something that, was not historic, but something that most mainstream fans wouldn't have ever seen anybody perform moves similar to that. When he did his front flip into a Hurricane Rana off the top rope, just stellar stuff. It was not an introduction, but it was something that I believe the fans haven't seen mainstream similar like that in a long time. Obviously, there's a lot of high flyers in AEW, but he did something differently that I've never seen before.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go a little bit different direction, and I think just for flavor, and I think I'd have to agree. I think that would probably be one of my top performances. And for those that used to watch old school WCW when they had the Lucha Libre movement, he definitely seemed like just a much better Juventud Guerrera. Just pulling out stuff that you never ever see. I thought Kenny Omega died 3 times in the ring when I was watching it, which was with the Poison Rana was one. And then I think one of the table spots with the 620 was just, or the 630 splash was just insane. But Vikingo was actually making the rounds the week before because I guess he's on a North American tour, and he was on the GCW pay-per-view as well for those that have never heard of Game Changer Wrestling. But he was actually in there and performed those same moves. And you know what, here's to this guy. I just say I have a V8 in hand. I'm just going to say cheers to that guy having the longest career ever, because from an actual wrestling perspective, that was something fresh and absolutely innovative that was an absolute treat to watch. And my partner's from Mexico, and yeah, Josh, it's okay. If she was on here, she would have said that you would have butchered the name, but it's okay. I would have done it the same. I believe it's El Hijo del Vikingo. And so, I don't know, we'll just get her to say it one time when she's on. She's not a big wrestling fan, but if we need Spanish translation, we'll be fine. We can get her. But I think for Wrestler of the Week, I think I'm going to kind of lean a little more to the WWE and go with probably with Kevin Owens. I want to say that the Kevin Owens going in with Sammy really seems to be the intriguing storyline of the Bloodline. Even to the point for me, and this is just my personal opinion, where it's almost even taking away from Roman and Cody as the main event. I think that has the ability with Zayn and Owens and their strong chemistry as tag team wrestlers in with the Usos. That is going to be such an incredible match that I almost wish it was in a steel cage or had something crazy, but it doesn't even need that. I just think we're going to see something, a great piece of storytelling when that comes out. And I think him being the Wrestler of the Week for me was really kind of stand out. He's the key element that's missing from that storyline that's really going to kind of bring in that brawling atmosphere that's going to have a great match for them at WrestleMania, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So away from our...
I think it's the most
the steel cage would be.
It's the most interesting story going into WrestleMania, that's for sure. Because Roman and Cody, not to say who cares, but the build up to Roman and Cody is too short because Cody was out for so long, and then just coming back to win the Rumble, I don't know, seems like it's a discount.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think WrestleMania is going to be awesome. I mean, it's awesome every time we see it. I mean, you'll have some purists that'll say, oh, it wasn't good. I don't really care. It's 2 full nights of wrestling. And, you know what? Everybody kind of steps up on that night. It's the biggest spectacle of the year, and it's going to be amazing to watch. So, moving away from, the wrestler of the week, what we're going to kind of go through, what do people think the match of the week was? So, Chris, let's start with you. Match of the week. What do you have? What do you think was the best match on TV this week?
Oh, I think we're pretty obviously going to go with Kenny versus Vikingo. Just like Josh said, there are things you haven't seen in there before. That Poison Rana, I thought the same thing as you did, Matt. I thought that was game over for Kenny's neck. I don't know. This guy just did, and it's hard. It's hard to. I've become so desensitized now. It's hard to give me a move or something that I haven't seen before. So having him come and do some of that stuff is just, it's after you've seen everything the same for so long, all of a sudden you see some fresh moves. It's now I'll probably go check out where his home promotion is, which is good because I don't watch it. So now I will. So again, match of the week, especially because going to possibly turn me on to another organization.
So if you got your pen there, he's actually I believe he's the champion in AAA, or AAA, however you want to say. So that's probably the one that you do want to watch. And if you've never watched AAA before and you've never ever seen anything, whenever AAA does their kind of their main kind of their WrestleMania, which is like Triple Mania they call it, it's actually on Twitch for some of it, so you can actually watch that for free on Twitch from the United States, which is kind of neat. I remember watching it last year because Kenny Omega actually fought. I think he actually fought Vikingo again, but I could be wrong on that. But there's a lot of great talent in that organization too. When you see, and there's a lot of like big names, like guys that you want to see, like Psycho Clown, like just amazing kind of Mil Mascaras, these legendary wrestlers that are over there too. So it doesn't hurt to watch it. Check it out, Chris, at all. Josh, I'm assuming that you're going to say the same thing, but other than that, what did it mean for you other than bringing in Tamara to come watch?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the match of the week. I think that it's interesting because I like what AEW has done with, bringing in the, the Japanese as well as the Mexican wrestlers. And although you do see some Lucha Libre in WWE, you never see it to that level, and I think that WWE doesn't really cater to those type of wrestlers as much. Think WCW was kind of like the stomping ground for lucha wrestling, back in the day in North America, at least that's what I've seen. They definitely had a good mix of that, and I enjoy watching it in AEW. I'd say that, like, if you were to say, like, the other match of the week, it wouldn't be for the match, but for what happened after the match is when the FTR came out after the Gun Club won, which was a terrible match, in my opinion. But the ending and the drama that it's creating, it's creating another storyline that's actually quite interesting. Hopefully, it seems like everything they do is a work, though. So I don't know. AEW, that is.
It'll be interesting. We're gonna bring that up. We're gonna bring that up too. So that's something that you'll save. I'll put you on first for that when you go through. But that's you hit it right on the spot. I think I'm right with you guys. I think going with that match, my favorite part was how it was basically just balls to the wall for 25 minutes or 20 minutes. And my favorite part is when you watch the camera kind of zoom out at one point. At the very, very beginning, when Kenny's walking up to the ring, you can actually see Vikingo starting to run all the way to the far ropes. And then they had to switch the camera in super quick because he flew over the top rope. But literally, you had this crazy ass top-down view of him going to do it. And then him just doing like I don't even know. I want to say it was a somersault plancha over the top, and but it was just so different from seeing it from like where the top of the stands would have been, because that's where the original camera was. That was one kind of a camera mistake that they made that was kind of beneficial when they went through. But like the whole storytelling, even to the match, if you go back, like they fought before, and they fought for the title when Kenny was on his belt collector run. And yeah, I think he was the closest guy to taking one of the titles away at one time. And again, that was at Triple Mania. But I think at the end when you're going through, it's just they're so connected in the ring. Kenny Omega has this unbelievable kind of connection with people when he wrestles them. Like, you can even go back to the old matches with his Golden Lovers partner. I'm trying to think of his name because we haven't seen him in forever either. Gano.
Oh, yeah, I have it at the top of my head. I was just talking about this in the Golden Lovers.
Kota Ibushi.
So
with Kota Ibushi, and you know what, like, just kind of creates these magical like connections with people that just kind of creates like these emotional. That doesn't even have to be a story there. It just kind of creates this emotional connection that you're watching. Like, it's almost like it's like this, like, just kind of takes over as an art form or as this kind of like, hey man, this is my passion of my life. This is my life's work. And we're watching it live and unfold on TV kind of. So I thought it was kind of cool at the end how they kind of brought in the whole situation with the BCC as well. Try and set up that storyline. I agree. I think setting up whatever they're going to do with Omega and Paige is going to be pretty interesting moving forward, especially when it comes to the Elite. And obviously everybody was in ambulances all through that show. So, yeah, definitely. I think we can all agree that was probably the match of the week, which is awesome. So, that's good to hear. So we're going to kind of move away from some general topics. We'll kind of move into some of the standalone topics. And what we'll do is let's just start with the FTR. And what this podcast, our wonderful podcast, TheRUB, is actually finger checking and calling the decision. And that's really what we're doing. For those that don't know, FTR seems to be kind of calling their shot on where they're going to go, what they're going to be doing. They're not sure one minute, they're sure the next. We don't really know where they're going or what the plan is. So this is part of a two-part question. One is, what do you think the prediction is? And two, after your prediction, what do you think the benefit would be to go somewhere else other than what you pick? So, for instance, if you say they're staying in AEW, what would be the big benefit for them going somewhere else? And where do you think that they would flourish if they went? So, Chris, where do you think FTR is going to end up?
I think they're going to end up in WWE. Is that what I want? Not necessarily. Are they setting up a work with their, if they lose to the Guns, they're gonna leave the AEW? Is it that obvious? Like, is it gonna be that obvious that they no pun intended, but give the rub to the Guns and then just head back to WWE? I don't know, because everything could be a work. I'd like them. I think their happiest time was when they were out collecting their belts as well. They got to go to the Indies, show up against the Briscoes. They got to do that stuff. They're not going to be able to do that in the WWE, but again, WWE is where the money is. They're going to be happy, and their families are going to be happy. But I don't know. I'd like to see them stay in AEW and have a similar run where I can see them in other promotions wrestling other top tier talent that I haven't seen before.
Awesome. Josh, what are your thoughts?
I'm similar to Chris. I think it's all a work. I think everything I think that a lot of it's, even down to MJF, with the countdown, it all just seems like everything that they're doing is a work to a bigger story. I don't know why, Tony would want to start announcing that his major players are leaving so easily and readily without kind of a plan. Like, it sounds like, okay, it's inevitable MJF's going to go to WWE. It's inevitable FTR is going to go to WWE because that's where the money is. I don't think that necessarily that's going to happen. I think that at least one of them is part of the story. I just don't know why you would have so many of these storylines where you would be, actively talking about some of your best wrestlers leaving. Not to say that, it's not worth putting, FTR against the Gun Club as like a retirement match, but really, if you're going to have FTR retire, why is it leave AEW against the Guns? I'm not really, buying it. It seems like it's not a match that I want to see them leave AEW over. Like, if they're going to leave, give me a good story. Like, not your short term, we're going to fight the Guns, and then if they lose, it's really anticlimactic. They're going to end up on Raw the next day or SmackDown, whenever it is, and who are they gonna? They're gonna fight the Usos, or they're gonna fight? I don't know. I think it's a work, but it could be. I'm hoping it's a work. I'm just kind of annoyed if it is a work because it seems like they're doing this work on multiple fronts.
Yeah, it seems like there's there's this kind of the tough go. Like I agree with you in the sense where we're kind of talking about if you're gonna make them have some big money matches, why don't you put them against the Bucks or why don't you put them against the Acclaim? Like seems to me like even though that the Acclaimed I believe like has beaten FTR, I would love to see something with the Acclaimed and FTR going off. And I mean, you know what? It's just it's a shame. It's a shame what happened with the Briscoes because I think we still could have seen some of the best matches, some of the best tag matches we ever would have saw. Unfortunately, due to the circumstance of Jay's death, right?
Jay Briscoe, yeah.
So it's one of those things where you're kind of going through where it's like, well, what do you have on the other side? So on the other side, everybody's kind of saying like the first thing everybody says is the Usos, but we had a chat today where we're kind of talking about maybe getting some different tag teams in there. Like who other than the Usos themselves, who do you think would be a great tag team if they were to jump ship and go to the other side? Who do you match them up with? Because they've been there.
Well, I mean, there's the Bucks contract's up as well, right? Like that's the other thing is that like the Bucks and Kenny's contract, they're going to be up. Is that something that like they're trying to get the most out of them right now? I don't know. Who knows? Who else would go?
Yeah, but their dream's a little bit different. I don't know if the WWE titles or getting to the WWE is like Kenny was already in NXT, and I don't know if the Bucks would even they'd lose a lot of what they do if they went there. And that's they say they do what they do because they love the way they can do it. So I don't know. And we could see the other Briscoe with a mystery partner or paired with somebody else and kind of rebuild that rivalry, and that would kind of be epic, right?
Yeah, I think using ROH as kind of not like as a feeder, but kind of as a little bit of a minor league promotion. And I use that with all due respect to anybody that's in ROH right now. Like we've been to ROH events. Those are not minor league shows by any mean. It's just the only reason we say that is because you're trying to compare a company that's been purchased by another company that's being run on a separate night, doesn't have a televised deal, can be seen on the fan club, which is through Honor Club. You can watch all of those matches through there, but just doesn't have a TV deal. It's kind of like, darker elevation in a way. But there's a lot of young kids that are coming up in that promotion too that are really good. Like I'd really love to see Matt Taven and Mike Bennett get an actual run out and actually as a tag team with Maria, and I think that would be unbelievable because they've been great in ROH for 10 years and they've been main eventing all the way through, and then they try to go somewhere else to kind of get stymied, and then I mean that's Bennett. I mean Taven's basically only ever been in Ring of Honor. And I mean, when Josh, when we were at Rampage, when we actually saw them in Toronto, I was actually shocked to see the Kingdom come out. And it was amazing to see, but I found that they've been really underutilized for what's going on. I mean, the FTR can have a ton of really good matches with some of these teams, but they just don't seem to get paired against them. But even so, like, pair them against, if like my final take on it is, if they're leaving, they're going somewhere else, get their value out of them, make them fight the Bucks, make them fight, Ray Phoenix and, Penta, El Zero Miedo and whatever, and have like a 3-way dance and some crazy ass cage match. Watch everybody kill themselves and then bring the value up for the belts and have those value being where it is. Because right now, my opinion is I like the Guns, but they're really raw. And I think with the Guns being so raw, like they have a lot of enthusiasm, but it's at this point, nobody believes them as the tag team champions. And it's kind of devaluing the belts. That's the way I see it.
I don't mind the way that they won the belts and the way like that they're on them, at least if they're creating a storyline. But like it seems like the clear story is with the Acclaimed, right? Versus I don't understand this FTR piece, but
yeah, no, the story went a little too long with the Guns and the Acclaimed and with Billy and and I think it just went a smidge too long, and I think at the end of it, it kind of hurt them, and not to their own fault. I think like they step in there. I think their in-ring work is pretty good. They're not on the level as those S tier teams that we've just kind of labeled, but you got to start somewhere. And I think the only way that you give them any sort of notoriety is by letting them have at least a title run. But it's scary to think of FTR leaving. It's scary of thinking of Omega and the Bucks leaving at some point. But I guess time's going to tell. But I'm kind of with you guys. I hope it's a big work, right? So we'll move on away from basically from FTR. Let's talk about some work rate of a couple wrestlers. Let's talk about what you guys think of the rise of Orange Cassidy, and what future plans would you use for him outside of the Atlantic title? I mean, Orange Cassidy, the knock is obviously, I don't want to use the WWE fan knock, but smaller guy, great in ring work's got a great attitude, well liked in the back room. He's on a massive winning streak. I want to say it's like 14 or 15 matches he's won in a row. Where do you see him going next, and for him to be potentially one of the pillars of AEW moving forward? Josh, let's start with you.
Well, I just want to correct you. It's no longer the Atlantic Championship. It's the International Championship.
International, sorry.
I think it's a great title to put on a super huge babyface. Like, he gets such a huge pop. It's hard to not have a belt like that on him for a period of time, just because he's going to get that reaction and you want him to go over. I think that it's like he basically, you know, gets beat up against these bigger wrestlers for a long period of time and finds a way to win. But he puts on a really good story, and you don't see too many wrestlers get the fans being so involved in their like persona, and then like even like when he does those like the little kicks, and you know that Sting was copying him the other day, and it seems like, you know, like a lot of the young male wrestling fans, they really like get into Orange Cassidy because it seems like he's just you know, this really doesn't give a shit, and people like, I don't know, people really enjoy it. I think that like the best what should happen to him is he should turn monster heel, like just fuck the fans and like just turn heel eventually. And you can kind of see him. He has like an in between every once in a while when he's with, you know, like the best friends. He kind of does things that are you know, a heel would do sometimes, and he acts suspiciously. So I think you could for sure turn him heel eventually, and that would be really interesting. I think that, you know, being a super baby face forever is not as fun as turning heel eventually.
Yeah, no, I think it's a lot easier too. My dad always used to say, he goes, it's easier to be a prick than to be a nice guy, right? And I think it's harder to be over as a baby face than to you know, have this heelish run. But he's just so good. Like, I remember the Halloween episode where I think you were looking in the stands and you probably looked at about 50 people that went as Orange Cassidy, and like every different age group you could possibly think of from this. I think there was this kid that was 3 years old that was dressed as him, to this 50-year-old man that decided, okay, I'm going to be Orange Cassidy for a day. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, his work rate's great. Yeah, I mean, been using the same gimmick from the indies for a long time, which has been good. And a lot of people were trying to get him over right off the bat when AEW started. And, you know, just because he was just such a big draw in the indies when people were out there. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on Orange Cassidy?
Yeah, I think I think I'm a fan of the gimmick. I really like it. I think having him being away for a little while each time has been pretty good for him. Like I can watch Orange Cassidy, but kind of month after month, it's, unless they do something like change his entrance music, have him come back, I feel like I kind of get tired of him. Like I've seen it. It's the same thing over and over. Do I see him holding a heavyweight championship? I don't think so. Similar to Josh, I think they use him really well for what he does. He gets he's over. Everybody likes it. I'd love to see a heel turn. It would be crazy. It would let kids down, and everybody would be in shock. I think
Fuck
having
the kids.
him
Fuck
kind
them.
of yeah, having him kind of just flip that switch, like maybe not Hogan-esque, but I mean, it would be pretty good. It'd be the biggest heel turn they could have. He's been he's been their babyface guy the whole time. Like you can always count on wholesome Orange Cassidy. He'll put on a great match, and he's just gonna be Orange Cassidy the whole time.
Yeah, and I think it's been interesting to see what they've been doing with Jack Perry, and then kind of trying to get him out of that just pure babyface and trying to kind of get him into and show some edge to what's going on. And you know what? I think Orange Cassidy's edge comes within his persona a little bit, but I don't necessarily know if you could turn him heel right off the bat. I think when you're looking at a lot of the scenarios for him, it's like I agree with you, Chris, is that I don't know if I see him as a world title guy. I don't know if I see him as the face of the company guy. When you're looking at that. And I think when you're going through, it's like, do you need to separate them from the best friends? Do you need them to have somebody else that he can kind of team up with that'll kind of work? I'm not saying put him in another stable, put him in something else, but you know, where does he go after this? I think that's kind of $1 million question, because he's one of the top draws. And when you're going through, even on pay-per-views, when you look at his work rate, you know that you're gonna get a good match out of Orange Cassidy. And I think even looking at Forbidden Door and from Forbidden Door 1, and I can't remember who he fought, but I remember that he had one of the best matches of the night from the original Forbidden Door. So if somebody wants to look that up,
was
it Will Ospreay? Yeah, like
it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was one, like, obviously, like, okay, now that we said Will Ospreay, which, you know, he's many cases, 80% of the time, he's probably going to be the best match on the card. But that match was unbelievable. And be really interesting to see who they pit him against at the next Forbidden Door when that happens in June. I mean, there's still a lot of wrestling to be had before that, but it'll be really interesting to see what they do with him, because I don't think he'll get Ospreay again, but be nice to see him go up against some Japanese talent and see what happens after. So with Orange Cassidy, we kind of had a run in. You know, Orange Cassidy's been kind of going through this with, as Josh stated, the international title. And we've been kind of seeing like a resurgence in the career of JEFF, JARRETT, which is something with that I don't think we ever really thought possible. I think, you know, we kind of look at wrestling and anything can be possible, but I had no expectation that Jeff Jarrett was going to be coming into AEW at all. And I think he's been working leaps and bounds for the company, and the ability to get his whole faction basically over has been unbelievable. And, you know, he keeps talking the world about Satnam Singh, and, you know, he's working with, why can't I think of his name right now? It was just because I'm tired. With Jay Lethal. Chris, I know we've been talking about Jeff Jarrett. What are your thoughts? Like, he looks fantastic for like 400 years old.
Oh, it's been one of my favorite parts of AEW is watching Jeff Jarrett. I've watched Jeff Jarrett for so many years. Like, even before I became a fan, when I just rented the videos, you'd see him in his like stringy suit back then. Just seeing everything he's doing now, he sells perfectly. Like, he's not selfish, doesn't no-sell people. Just the small things like getting up and begging the guy not to hit you. Like, we don't see much of that anymore. Pulling the ref when he has to, pretending to hit Aubrey, pretending to hit the ref all the time. I think it's not something I saw coming. I thought he's too old, and then he shows up and like, guy looks great. He looks phenomenal. Of course he can still wrestle. And to be honest, what I want to do is watch his TNA runs. I wonder if I've actually missed out on quite a bit by not watching his TNA runs, thinking it was garbage and he was just taking over the promotion. Not that he didn't just take over the promotion, but maybe it was pretty good.
You know what? Actually, going back to that, and Josh, I don't know if you watched any of the old TNA with Jeff Jarrett that was in it. I know that I think you've watched a little bit. But I would stand up and say, other than, you know, you look at, you know, AJ Styles when he was, you know, part of Impact, I would say, and even Kurt Angle, you know, take out Sting, Hogan, all those guys. I think Jeff Jarrett was the most crucial guy in that entire company to make anything happen. And I remember one of his title runs lasted pretty much close to a year, and he was always doing, I think he lost it in a King of the Mountain match, but that whole run in, if you go back and watch it, Chris, and even you, Josh, if you go back and watch that, it's phenomenal stuff. Like, it really is. It's kind of that old slap nuts, carry the guitar around, you know, character and just kind of shirt off, smashing people in the head with the guitars. But it was just great. Like, I mean, it was kind of like his WCW character, but the storylines made sense because he was always in the ring with somebody better than he was. And even though sometimes they might not have been over, he made them look good all the time. He always made him look like the second-rate heel champion that he should be, you know. But he was the heart and soul of that company, in my opinion. So, so Josh, Jeff Jarrett, I don't know how much that you watched beforehand. I know that he was probably a little bit of a pre-attitude guy, but have you been entertained? Yeah, have you been entertained with him?
Yeah, I know Jeff. Yeah, I like that he's back. I can't believe how great of shape he's in. He's in the same shape that he was when he left WWE when I watched back then, and I think that, you know, I would say, like, would he be, you know, top three guys who, you know, weren't in WWE and maintained their career for that extended period of time, if not, you know, number one. Him and Sting were outside of that promotion for a long period of time and kept going. And, you know, it seems like, I bet you they mentored a lot of young wrestlers who came up and, you know, got their licks in. I think that it's definitely interesting to see him work with the group that he's working with. You know, Jay Lethal's, you know, experienced and been around, but, you know, like, not I don't know a lot about Jay Lethal's history. Did he make main roster in WWE at all, or?
No, he never did. He was a big player. He was probably a semi-big player in Impact. He had a really good run against Ric Flair, where he basically kind of stole Ric Flair's moveset. And one of the funniest things that you'll ever see, highly recommend you watch this tonight, Josh, if you get a chance. But and to anybody that's listening, really watch the woo-off with Jay Lethal and Ric Flair. They basically have a woo-off that goes for like 5 minutes, and it's on TV, and it's just hilarious. But that's kind of where he was at. He was an ROH guy. He was the main player in ROH, got a TNA contract. I don't know if he held the world title in Impact. I don't think he did. He might have. I'm not 100% sure. But he was definitely a guy that was up there and well respected, and then basically retired. And you know, when you look at Jay Lethal and you look at his moveset's been the same for about 10 years, but probably one of the biggest innovators of probably 4 of massive moves that are in there. Like, I don't think he's had, I think other than maybe his second match in AEW, I don't think he's had a really bad match. Like, he's performed pretty well under the circumstances that he's been given.
He's fun to watch. I think he used to do the Macho Man stuff too.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's even on Being the Elite back when I used to watch it. That stuff was hilarious. it was gold every time. I'd laugh.
Yeah, and you know, I think like that's it's kind of what you need. It's kind of everybody I find in WWE, and it's not a knock on WWE. I think it's a good thing to have. Everybody wants to be the world heavyweight champion, and I think that's great. But you have to be realistic that in order to have a good show, you have to have a good mid card, and if you don't have a good mid card, you kind of lose the plot going into the main event. And I think that's what kind of we've been seeing with the WWE. You got a lot of these guys that are coming in. We don't necessarily believe some of the things that we're watching, and, you know, you know, it's the same thing as, you know, you kind of have like what we like to call those smoke break matches, like where you're like, okay, I don't want to watch this. But to have those mid cards really come out and say, okay, I'm going to stick around and watch this because this is going to be really interesting. Or, you know, and kind of go through. I think we definitely see that much more in AEW than we do in WWE. I mean, that's just the reality of what we're watching, I think, at this point. What do you guys think?
Yeah, their mid-card, AEW's mid-card it does in lots of ways remind me of WCW. They have the more international pool of players that are in the ring all the time, showcasing that. And yeah, I just think that their mid-card with like Jarrett, even Orange Cassidy as the champion is a good mid-card champion for them to have. So yeah, without a strong mid-card, you need something to build up to the main event. You can't just have smoke break matches because everybody's going to be flat. The whole crowd's going to be flat by the time the main event comes around. Yeah,
I agree. I think and it doesn't help that WWE has four of their titles on, you know, one group basically. So it's like it's even hard to have. They don't really have 2 shows where they have, you know, a solid headliner they have the one headliner for both shows, and it's like, okay, so how do you even build a mid card around one show when you've got the same group winning everything? And it's it's the hot group and it's the hot the hot story, but at what cost is this having to the product that they're putting out? Like.
Absolutely, and totally agree. And I mean, you know what? Obviously, we're getting ready for WrestleMania, and WrestleMania is coming in, so they'll kind of throw off when we're going to be able to do our podcast. I think because we're going to have 2 nights there, going day 1, day 2. So we'll probably have our podcast probably set up on a Tuesday when we move forward. But with everything being said, I know we've talked a lot about AEW tonight, but I think we're going to have a lot to talk about for WWE when we go into the next podcast. Now, what do you think is going to be your favorite match going into WrestleMania? And what are you looking forward to the most out of the WrestleMania weekend? And what do you want to see out of it? I'll start with you, Josh.
To be honest, I'm kind of hoping for the bloodline story with Sami Zayn to kind of come to an end. I think it's kind of like, is there going to be multiple swerves that are going to happen? Like, obviously, their match with the Usos is probably going to have an impact on the match with Roman and Cody. I don't see either of those matches ending clean. I don't think that you can have anybody lose clean out of those 2 matches, because you got to protect everybody. You might be able to have Kevin Owens lose with the Usos, but I think that, or Jimmy could lose too. But I think that obviously there's going to be 2 swerves. I don't know if I'm really into Cody and Roman. It seems like they're forcing Cody down our throats, and there was a delay. Like, the story needed last year to happen, and unfortunately his injury took him out of the storyline. So Sami Zayn took the ball and went with it and became the star that everybody wanted to see the belt go on. And I don't disagree with him not getting the belt, but I think that I'm really interested to see how the Cody match goes, and I'm actually kind of hoping that he loses, because I think that it'll create a better story for him. If not to say that he shouldn't get the belts eventually, but I think that it's too on the nose if he gets the belts. They could split them up. I like, maybe there's going to be a stipulation that comes late where it's like a best out of 3, or not best out of 3, but like one pinfall for one and one pinfall for the other, and they split them up, and then have Roman stay with SmackDown and then lose eventually when he wants to leave, and then have Cody on Raw. I think, but they haven't introduced that yet, so I think that's something that could still happen.
Chris, what are your thoughts? What are you looking forward to?
Oh boy. Sorry, I just had to pull my phone up here to take a look at, so that I can see what's going on. Charlotte Ripley. I'm excited for that. I'm a big Charlotte Flair fan, and Rhea Ripley's really grown on me, so I'm really looking forward to that one. Not looking forward to Brock Lesnar versus Omos whatsoever.
Omos versus Omos versus Omos with special guest referee Omos.
And I don't know, I'm kind of a mark for him, but I'm looking forward to Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins. I'm kind of a Logan Paul mark right now. I like the stuff he does. Also, not looking forward to Austin Theory and John Cena opening up the whole thing.
That's the rumor.
John Cena's gonna kind of, if John Cena comes back and buries him again like that, just makes him look terrible.
I agree.
Yeah, you know what? I think when we're going through it, I think you're looking at that, and I think, you know what, Chris, you mentioned a whole bunch of like great matches there, and you know what, that's probably hasn't even touched all the stuff that's even out there. You know what I mean? Like, that still doesn't touch, the bloodline stuff, and still doesn't touch. But I mean, you know what? When you kind of look at Roman Reigns, I think almost he has to lose clean. But I'm kind of with you. It's like, it doesn't seem like it's been a big enough push to kind of like, it's almost like Cody wins the titles, and if he does, it's like, where does he go from there? Like, who's he gonna fight from there? And it just doesn't really make sense. Like, it seems like the next Monday night, it's like, okay, we're going to start the whole season off, and then it's going to be whatever, let's just say Omos going to fight him at whatever it is, like at some pay-per-view. And then you're never really looking forward to the pay-per-view after, which is usually Backlash. You're not usually looking forward to that because if there's a significant title change, like what's going to happen, it's probably not going to change at Backlash, right? So I think I don't know what's going to happen this week. I think it's going to be a really telltale sign of what's going to happen this week. But I feel like really there just hasn't been enough of Cody and Reigns to kind of push it. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens. I'd have to agree with you, Josh. I mean, I like Cody Rhodes and I think the injury hurt him, but I definitely feel like it's like, yeah, you're being shoved down our throats. And, because if he wasn't, and I think that's also part of what we saw of him in AEW. I mean, he really wasn't kind of getting over to the point, like the fans were turning on him at the end, and they just kind of, it would have been almost better for him to have the storylines where he was if he just would have stayed, and then just didn't work out that way, right? But it's good to see that he's over in WWE, and it's good to see that hopefully it'll have a good match. But I think at the end of the day, we've seen Roman for 2 years now. We've had him with the belt for that long. I think you just gotta kind of bury one of the longest runs that we're ever going to see, and we got to kind of get back into a couple of shorter runs before we can kind of take a stab at something else. The variety definitely helps, and as much as Roman is, in my opinion, probably one of the top 3 best wrestlers on the planet, I think the length of a reign, it's time for it to come to an end.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I think that, do you really have Cody take away the 1,000 days? Like, that's the thing for Cody winning, is that like Roman's reign has been 936 days, and he's going to lose to Cody after Cody came back for like a month and a half, 2 months. Not to say never proved himself in WWE, but he proved himself in AEW. But like they're putting a lot of stake in him taking over for arguably the biggest champion they've ever had. So like that's a big that I'm not to say that he can't do it. I don't know who else you'd be able to give it to. Really, there's not really anybody else in their roster. Not to say there's not anybody else in the roster, but who's carrying Roman Reigns' shoulders, right? Or like weight? Maybe Jey Uso if he has a big turn.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things is that I said this to somebody the other day. I said I didn't believe, the only person that I believe that could have knocked Roman Reigns off his perch at any point in any of the matches that I saw wasn't even Brock Lesnar. It was Kevin Owens. And then Kevin Owens had 2 matches back to back where I went about the year mark when Roman had it for a year, where I actually thought they could give it to Kevin Owens. And then after those 2 matches, I have not believed in any single point where he's going to lose. And the only reason that I think he might lose at WrestleMania is contractually, that he's like, it's not a believability thing. It's a believability in a contract and what we know a little bit behind the scenes, right? Like we're not total marks, but we kind of have an understanding of what's going on. So, I think it'll be really interesting to see. I like the swerve. I'm hoping that we're going to have a swerve of the week and we're going to talk about Paul Heyman doing it. I hope it's Paul Heyman that swerves. If that's me, I think that's going to probably be a pretty cool story moving forward if it ends up being Paul Heyman following the title, right?
I was hoping it was going to be Randy Orton coming back, giving Cody giving him a cutter, and then starting that feud right there. Obviously not going to happen. That's my. But if Randy Orton runs out at WrestleMania and gives someone a cutter, Josh called it.
I wouldn't mind Orton Cody at all. They have history in WWE.
Yeah, for sure. I think with that, we're going to get ready. We're going to get ready for WrestleMania. It's on March 1st, March 2nd. I believe those are the dates. At least I hope they are. Because I'm not looking at my computer right now, even though I should be. But with that being said,
it's April
1st, not
2nd,
March.
yeah.
April 1st and 2nd. I got the 1 and the 2 right, so I was halfway there.
Oh, we didn't talk about Dominic.
That's okay. He's we're gonna leave. We'll leave Dominic until we go into the next podcast, and then we can actually talk about one of the topics we will bring up. I think is Dominic Mysterio one of the best heels in the WWE? I think that's a great topic. But I think WrestleMania is gonna kind of sit there and kind of tell us something a little bit more, especially with his match with Ray, right? But with that being said, everybody, thanks for tuning into our first podcast. We had a blast doing this. That was pretty much almost close to an hour. If you like what we're talking about, we got a great intro music from Johnny B. He's hooked us up with that intro music, and you know what? Thanks to Johnny B for that. Also, SWA alum. And also one of the resident bookers with somebody named Chris Gagno. That's why he has the title for so long, folks.
That's right.
So that's what we always said. It was hard to break the glass ceiling in the SWA. But with that being said, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rub for this week. And we'll see you guys all coming back from WrestleMania weekend. Have a good night.